Welcome to Critical Junction Episode 5. I'm Mark.
I'm Jose.
So, it actually happened.
It happened.
Earlier this week, notorious woman abuser and fake university CEO Donald Trump was elected as 45th President of the United States.
Yay.
Just let that sink in for a minute. So today we're going to be talking about how and why that happened, what it means for Canada and the rest of the world, and what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no way to kind of overstate the horror that's gone down in American history now. And I mean, we've had some pretty unstable characters run for president before. If you think of, like, let's say JFK, he had some health problems and stuff. That led him to, take some amphetamine shots during the Cuban Missile Crisis, on his example. Reagan's attention span was so short, the CIA had to make mini movies to brief him on foreign leaders. George W. Bush, not only didn't he read the news, he wasn't interested at all. Like, he was even quoted as saying, "What's in the newspaper is worth worrying about." So we've had some unstable characters before run for president, but nothing like this.
Nothing even comes close to this. I mean, I think we should start by talking about how his election came to be, despite the fact that all the pollsters and all the evidence showed that it was impossible for him to be elected. Up until the actual night of the election, everyone was saying this guy is a fucking joke, and there's no way he can possibly win the White House.
But there was kind of hints to him actually being, like, in the lead from the beginning, no? Like,
right from the very beginning, right as soon as the first poll started to close, he was in the lead.
Yeah.
Right from the start.
Yeah.
Which was kind of upsetting. It was a sheer sign of the way things were about to unfold throughout the rest of the night. And then, Florida happened.
Yeah.
And we're all like, what the fuck is going on? He actually has a chance of becoming the president.
Yeah. And
this went on for hours, right? It was mind-blowing.
Wasn't it you? I'm pretty sure it was you that told me that, there's a political scientist out there that pretty much always predicts the next president to come, and he predicted that it was Trump to win.
Yeah.
No? So whatever happened with this guy, like
I don't remember what happened with him, but
okay.
Yeah, he's predicted every president since the 1980s. Or no, it was the last 8 presidents that he predicted correctly.
And he's been right every single time.
Every time.
So the fact that he predicted Trump, people should have been listening a lot more.
They should have, and I think that comes down to what I call the failure of the left.
Yeah. We
were overconfident. Actually, I posted this on Facebook. Just as a status update, and I think it kind of encapsulates what happened. Like, this election, this is a quote from what I posted. This election was a failure of the left. We underestimated just how disenfranchised some voters felt with the status quo. We failed to listen to people raging against the establishment, and now we have to live with the result. But we also have to learn from it and do what we do best, and that's move forward as best we can. So this can happen here even after 10 years of Harper, so we liberals cannot forget that. So it was a lot of anti-establishment rhetoric. I mean, a lot of people, for the longest time, were so fucking pissed off at us liberals and how tolerant we were becoming of everything.
Yeah.
With social justice warriors and safe space and all of that bullshit is what finally led to the tipping point. And people, Sam Harris, in his latest podcast, which he titled "The Most Powerful Clown," which I think is just a brilliant summation of what this guy has now become.
Yep.
But he said that this is all those people who were fed up with this kind of social justice nonsense, saying "fuck you" to the establishment.
Yeah.
And he is absolutely right.
Yeah, for sure.
People were we underestimated how pissed off people are and how they feel that the establishment and the status quo has completely left them behind. And enough of them turned up to vote to put Donald Trump in power.
Yeah.
46% of the American electorate decided not to vote last week.
And they're calling it, what, a white lash? Basically, yeah. It's like, whites coming together and electing this guy just to kind of spite everyone else, the rest of the country.
Yeah, out of the people who did turn up to vote, I think it was something like 70% were white.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, even the white women were voting for Trump, so it's kind of like, how aware were these people going into the pollings, and how much information did they actually know before they voted?
Well, that's something I can't understand is why would women vote for Donald Trump? Like, this is the man who said, grab them by the pussy.
Yeah, that should be a hashtag, I feel like. Grab them by the pussy. Hashtag right there.
Pretty sure it was
Yeah.
for Trump supporters. I can't wrap my head around that. Like, if I were a woman and I heard this fucking orange buffoon say that kind of bullshit, I'd be like, despite Hillary Clinton's flaws, despite the fact that she represents absolutely everything the disenfranchised people felt she, were pissed off at,
Yeah.
I would still vote for her.
For sure, because she's, in my mind, the most qualified candidate to be part of this. So,
Yeah.
I mean, geez, just the fact that they elected Trump, to be part of this is insanity. But the fact that he won, it just tells you that, I mean, Americans just aren't aware as they should be.
I think, yeah, it partly comes down to that, but I think also one of the root causes is the fact that, again, the people who voted for him were from proportionally smaller towns. They had that, they felt so left out by the fact that all the jobs are going to big cities and their small town values are being systematically eradicated by us leftist liberal elitists.
Yeah.
That they finally had enough, and they turned up in droves to vote for Trump. I have to wonder if that 46% had shown up and cast a ballot, how things could have been differently.
Yeah.
So, when people say, well, what's the point of voting? Fuck you. Fuck you and fuck that attitude, because this is what happens if you don't vote. You get an orange buffoon who has zero political experience, who is now going to lead the free world.
Yep. What's going to happen at the UN?
I can't even imagine what it would be like to watch a UN address by President Donald Trump.
Yeah, just the words President Donald Trump is just driving me crazy. That's
like I don't think people realize just how dangerous this is going to become. This is the man who has demonstrated complete and utter disdain for the media.
Yeah.
Like, a free press is one of the cornerstones of a democracy, and he wants to change libel laws to make it easier for him to sue journalists who have a dissenting opinion.
Yeah. That's kind of like the conversation that we had about the CIA trying to debunk the whole conspiracy theories, and all the theorists out there just right away they're just backlashing them. But it works the same way. Whenever a candidate like this doesn't like something, they will backlash as much as they can. So
he is known as being an extremely vindictive person. So this is coming from an interview on Frontline with Amorosa Manigo, who is Trump's chair of African American outreach. Surprise. Newsflash, they had a chair of African American outreach in the Trump campaign. But in this interview, and we'll post a link to the video in the description, she said, and I quote here, "Every critic, every detractor will have to bow down to President Trump."
Wow.
Yeah, anyone who's doubted Donald Trump is going to have to bow down to him when he's president.
And it's crazy because, like, during the whole election, he was shunned by people in his own party.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you have people like the president's-elect closest advisor, a bunch of crackpots, really. But Nobel, what is it? The head of his EPA transition team, Myron Abel, is a noted climate change denier. Pyramid enthusiast and stabbing expert Ben Carson is already being mentioned as a possible health and human service chief.
Ben Carson, while we're on the topic of Ben Carson, this guy is a creationist, and he wants to make him Secretary of Education.
I don't get it.
That makes no sense.
No, not at all. I mean, you got Rudy Giuliani as well. He's probably too unhinged by now for, even the People's Court reboot, but he might be the Attorney General.
He wants to make Giuliani
Attorney
General.
How fucking crazy is that?
Just let that sink in for a minute, okay? And what that could possibly mean. Giuliani is in favor of stop and frisk, and he might become Attorney General of the United States.
God only knows who's going to end up being the Supreme Court nominee.
I don't even want to know. I don't even want to think about that.
Like, we're only hoping it's actually somebody who's been a lawyer or at least played a lawyer on TV.
Well, it goes back to people who were raging against the establishment, because people who voted for Trump on that premise are in for a huge, huge shock.
Yeah.
Because his promise of draining the swamp in Washington, sorry, that's not happening. Right now, like, he's filling his potential cabinet with a bunch of Washington insiders, including, like you said, Giuliani and all these other people. Yeah. Like his vice president, Mike Pence. This is an article that just came out. Is taking over the transition team.
Really?
Yeah, Mike Pence is taking over transition planning from Chris Christie, a move that sources say reflect a diminished role for the New Jersey governor.
Interesting.
So, despite all of Trump's lack of experience, he's filling his cabinet with, guess what? People who have political experience. So the outsider that people thought they were electing is really just, he's going to continue the status quo that they're fighting so hard against.
Yeah.
So, you know what? As a liberal, as someone on the left, at this point, all I can do personally is just let them destroy themselves.
We're sitting back, relaxing on the sidelines, just watching the mayhem go down, because that's all we can do at this point.
That's all we can do.
He's already elected. What else can we do but sit back and wait?
Like, at this point, it's a reality that the world has to live with.
Yeah.
We're going to have to, on January 20th, the world is going to be faced with President Donald fucking Trump.
Like USA's biggest, most epic fail? We won't know until, he finishes off his term, if he even ends up finishing his term. I mean, with all these trials going on, like...
Well, that's another thing. Like, this is the first time in history that an incoming president is facing a fraud trial in just a couple of weeks from now.
And the sexual charges, it's craziness. Like, just mind-boggling to think that this guy who's got a bunch of trials going on for different things and still elected president.
Yeah. But now, what is that going to look like for Canada and the rest of the world? Let's just talk about a couple of the different things that Trump has said during his campaign. Notably that he wants to renegotiate NAFTA.
Yep.
What is that going to look like? We're the U.S.'s primary trading partner.
Mm-hmm.
In an article in the CBC, which we will post, let's see here. Quoting from that article, a spokesperson for Chrystia Freeland, Canada's international trade minister, said roughly 2.5 million Canadian jobs are dependent on trade with the U.S., while 23%, or $449.9 billion of our GDP is derived from exports of goods and services to the U.S. alone.
Yeah.
So an astounding 72% of Canada's exports of goods and services go to the U.S. And Donald Trump wants to renegotiate that deal. That is going to be an epic fail for our economy.
Yeah. Like NATO doesn't even know what they should expect from our country, or from Americans, and its commitment to securing that Eastern Europe trade deal. So it's like, what is it going to look like? What is going to happen?
That's another thing. Like his stand, he's not a fan of NATO.
Mm-hmm.
He tweeted on March 24th of this year, NATO is obsolete and must be changed to additionally focus on terrorism as well as some of the things it is currently focused on. First of all, what the hell is he saying? I don't understand how Donald Trump thinks. The words that he strings together are indicative of a complete lack of intelligence.
Well, I mean, they say he's illiterate, that he can't even read, which is why he's always going against these teleprompters or whatever. That basically he doesn't like using them because he can't read them. So, I mean, if you look at like all his interviews or anything he's ever done, he's never reading anything. It's literally off the top of his head.
Everything he says, everything he's ever said in any of his rallies has been completely off the cuff and off the top of his head. But even still, you and I right now are talking off the cuff, off the top of our heads.
Yep.
And yet we seem to be making sense. I haven't, in the past, how long we've been recording, in the past 15 minutes, I have not strung together a sentence that sounds like, it'll be great, believe me, it's going to be great, it's going to be amazing, it's great, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying words that make sense.
Mm-hmm. We go a little bit more into detail as to whatever it is.
So I just anyway, getting back to NATO, he wants to. I would say he's probably going to pull out of NATO.
Yeah.
And what is that going to look like?
I don't know. We won't know until we get there.
This comes back to the what we were originally opening with and how and why this happened, but we on the left have completely turned a blind eye to the rise of neo-nationalism and isolationist policies and far-right parties coming out of Europe. The rise of the Front National in France, for example, or the Golden Dawn in Greece.
Yeah.
These are things that are taking place, big time, like the Brexit vote. No one saw that coming. No one predicted the rise of Front National. No one seems to want to recognize that there's a shift in global consciousness that's happening right now.
Yep.
And we need to react to that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of reactions. I mean, there's just, what can you do, really? I mean, the whole Brexit thing, you think Americans would have learned something by that whole outcome. And the fact that people were unaware of what they were voting for and then came out of it Googling, what the hell is this?
Right.
It's like, come on, people, just do a little bit of research, do your homework a little bit, become aware. That's all you have to do. Look at both sides.
Well, traditionally, I think people, I want to say Americans don't vote based on issues alone or at all.
Yeah.
They vote, they react vote.
Yeah.
I think.
It's fear mongering. Exactly what Trump did was the fear mongering and just scared the shit out of a bunch of people and got them to vote.
Yeah. Like Sam Harris again in the same podcast that I was mentioning earlier, he was talking about how Hillary Clinton's campaign failed to address or even name Islamic terrorism as an issue.
Really?
Trump did.
Of course.
He recognized the fact that people in the U.S. are afraid of Islamic terrorism and named it by name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another one of our failures.
And I feel like Trump made idiots of us all, really, of Americans, really. From the end of primary season onward, it was sure that Trump was en route to ruining, perhaps forever, the Republican Party.
Well, I think it stands to argue that he has ruined the Republican Party.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, yeah, and now they're more dominant than ever.
They control the House of Representatives, they control the Senate, and the White House.
It's scary. That's just scary to me.
Donald Trump is he's going to get a lot of what he wants, at least at first.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think he also fails to realize that there are checks and balances in place preventing the president from just going completely off the rails and making all kinds of sweeping changes. But at the same time, he does have a tremendous amount of power. Things are going to fly through Congress because the Republicans control everything.
Yeah.
So Obama's legacy might be destroyed.
Yeah.
And just getting back to what things might look like for Canada, Trump's stance on climate change, for example, that's not good for us.
No, not at all.
He's a climate denier, and that's gonna hamper our idea of imposing a carbon tax.
Mm-hmm.
However, Trudeau said he is going to push ahead with it because, he said this during a press conference a couple of days ago. When he was when the government reopened the Sydney Veterans Affairs office.
Okay.
He took some questions from journalists about the election, and one of them was, what does it mean for the carbon tax?
Yeah.
He said we're going to push ahead because right now where we are, it's impossible to separate the economy from the environment. So I hope, it's my sincere hope that the Prime Minister actually stands up and protects Canada's interests, especially when it comes to things like climate change.
You would hope so.
Because if Trump pulls out of the Paris Accord like he says he wants to do, that's game over.
Mm-hmm.
There's no going back and fixing the environment after that.
Yeah.
The amount of carbon dioxide that the U.S. is going to pump into the atmosphere if he pulls out of out of the Paris Accord
Hmm.
is going to be disastrous.
It's a scary thought.
It's a terrifying thought. Like
Yeah.
that's it's a doomsday scenario.
It really is.
Like
Yeah.
Trump has said that climate change is a Chinese hoax. Here, this is from that same article that we'll be posting. The concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive.
Really?
That's a tweet from November 6th, 2012.
Okay.
From Donald J. Trump.
That's from Donald Trump himself. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. His tweets are just ridiculous. You know that they took him away from Twitter because of all this stupidness that he keeps ranting on about.
That was during like the day before the election.
Yeah, it was the day before.
They took Twitter away from him because he can't be trusted with it.
They were afraid that he was just gonna go hysterical on there.
Well,
and
he's back on it now. I mean, he has his Twitter account back, and he's been posting some pretty outlandish stuff about specifically the protests that have been happening. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'll try to find the tweet later, and we'll do a follow-up post about that. But yeah, this is also the man who. Do you remember during the whole beauty pageant scandal how he had a tendency to go into teenage girls' dressing rooms so he can peep on them and then shame them later at 3 a.m. on Twitter?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I think the only consistency in Donald Trump's campaign has been A, hatred and bigotry, and B, a disdain for, well, Rosie O'Donnell, for one thing. I don't even know why that is. Why does he hate Rosie O'Donnell so much?
Who knows? It's Trump. We don't want to get into his mindset, really.
Yeah, but his policies are going to be hugely disastrous for Canada. Stephen Harper, after the election, tweeted, "Congratulations to Donald Trump on his impressive victory. Canada-U.S. partnership is strong. There is much to do, including moving ahead with the Keystone XL pipeline." I don't like the way that sounds.
No, not at all.
Thanks a lot, Stephen Harper.
No, really.
We thought we were rid of you. Because we can never really be rid of that kind of thing. But, and now, we think we can't. It can't happen here in Canada. That this kind of, hate-filled, anti-reason politics can't happen here.
And in our line of work, we hear it all the time. We hear both sides. We work sort of, well, we can't mention the details of the kind of work we do, but we are definitely listening to both sides. We hear both sides. And it's scary to think that, it does exist here in Canada as well.
It absolutely exists here. I mean, just look at the Conservative Party leadership race.
Yeah.
People like Kevin O'Leary and Kelly Leitch could potentially become the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Kelly Leitch especially has been, she's been trying to stoke the flames of anti-Muslim rhetoric.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's disgusting. Like her whole proposal about Canadian values, I don't think she understands what Canadian values are. Canadian values are inclusiveness and multiculturalism.
Yeah. And
this is from, I'm going to just quote from an article that came out in The Walrus just a few days ago. It actually came out yesterday on Remembrance Day. So I'm just going to quote the last paragraph here. Canada's relative position of strength, if that's how you can describe not being overwhelmed by loathing for others, should not render us complacent. Quite the opposite. Right now, while we are not in the darkness, we must make multiculturalism work. We must make it work better, and we must make it work for everyone. We must make it work while bringing ourselves, or at least attempting to bring ourselves, into a state of reconciliation with the first peoples of this country. It is our duty to the world. We need to show, through example, that hatred is not the only possibility in a world filled with others.
Yeah, now that you mention that, that's actually my other worry for future candidates, whether here or in America. They're going to take these same strategies that Trump used throughout this whole election and use the exact same thing. It's proven that he did it, that it worked, and the fear mongering got people to vote, get out there and actually vote. Why wouldn't it stop future candidates from doing the same now?
Exactly. A lot of people in the U.S. thought it couldn't happen there either. That there was no way his bigotry and intolerance and misogyny and xenophobia would permit him to become president.
Mhm.
But look where we are now.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the Democratic Party, it's shattered right now. And are they they're going to be facing uncertain, their future is just uncertain at this point. So it's kind of like them not being able to kind of take out Trump throughout this whole election. They deserve it at this point.
They need to do some serious soul searching after this.
Yeah, really.
What? Let's say they had not chosen Hillary Clinton as their candidate in this election, and Bernie Sanders was chosen instead. What do you think the result would have been?
That's tough to say. I mean, I thought about that too, and the fact that there's a whole sexist thing going on, that people didn't vote for Hillary because they're sexist against her, like she's female, they don't want a female president. So if Bernie was the candidate as opposed to Hillary, he probably would have stood a better chance than Trump being elected. And I think more people actually would have voted for Bernie. But again, we'll probably never know, but I feel like that's the way it would have went down. Bernie could have been our next president.
See, I partially agree with that. I think you hit it pretty solidly with the feminist thing, or anti-feminist thing. But at the same time, I think Bernie would have stood a better chance, but I don't think he would have been president.
No.
Solely for the fact that socialism is a dirty word in the U.S., and Bernie Sanders clearly labeled himself as a socialist. All the guy wanted was healthcare and education for everyone.
Yeah.
If he were running for office here in Canada, he would have just been another liberal.
Yeah.
Or maybe an NDP member. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that kind of thinking is completely normal to us.
Yeah.
But it's revolutionary and kind of dirty to the Americans.
Yeah, and I mean, Trump used every dirty trick he could. I mean, the whole email scandal thing, nothing came out of it. And yeah, I mean,
there's an interesting statistic about that. Now that you mentioned emails,
yep.
They tallied up the total amount of time spent on air talking about the email scandal,
Okay.
versus how much time was spent talking about policy.
Interesting. Okay.
The amount of time they spent talking about emails totaled, I think it was something like 100 minutes, of on-air blah blah about something that should not have been mentioned at all or covered that much in depth.
Yep.
Policy, 22 minutes.
Wow. Like, this is just a shit show. I mean, the whole thing was done as I feel like a publicity stunt. This was like a fucking pageant show or a fucking, it doesn't even matter. Like, the whole thing was not a presidential election. This was just for our entertainment purposes only.
It certainly felt like that. It also felt like Trump was doing it, like you said, partly for the publicity, but also, I think he went into it trying to raise his brand awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then, thinking, first of all, there's no goddamn way I can get the nomination. So I'm just going to go in there and say all this fucking crazy bullshit so people will know who I am.
Yeah.
And then he got the nomination. And he was like, oh, fuck. Now I have to do this because I'll be damned if I'm labeled a loser and drop out.
Yeah.
And then it went a step further. And he was pulling ahead in the polls. So now he's like, I'm just going to go completely crazy, say even crazier bullshit, so I don't get elected president. Because then I have to do actual work.
Yep.
And that didn't work either.
No.
And now he's going to become the 45th president of the United States.
Everyone doubted him from the very beginning. Everyone doubted him, and look at us now. Yeah, you just never know. You never know.
I think, everyone doubted him. But we also, and let's not forget this, we also underestimated his supporters and the people he was trying to reach. And
that's the thing. Whenever we have somebody who becomes a president, they have this certain like charisma to them, and that's what Trump had. When it came to like the charisma over Hillary was, she did her part. She said what she needed to, but it wasn't pulling people in the way Trump did. And that was the problem, is that he has that charisma, just like every other president that's, been elected. They have that certain something that catches people's attention, and that's exactly what he did. And that's all he needs, really, is for people to just listen to his nonsense and then get out there and vote. Vote for me. That's it.
Like, I hate to draw the parallel, because as soon as you play this card, you've lost the argument. However, I think it's fair in this case to compare him to Hitler. If you look at the sheer magnitude of Trump rallies,
Mhm.
they bore striking resemblances to the Nuremberg rally.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, enormous crowds cheering for this one man and creating a cult of personality around Donald Trump.
Mhm.
That's again, I don't like drawing this parallel in any other debate or argument, but he has all the hallmarks of a fascist.
And it's a comparison worth noting. Like, you don't want to ignore this, because the fact that he's president now, we ignored everything up until then, right? And if we're continuing to ignore all these little hints and signals that he could become the next Hitler, we can't ignore that. People have to come together and do something about it, because if not, it's going to be way too little too late. And
so while we're on the topic of coming together and doing something about it, what do you think of the protests?
Everybody has their right to protest. The only thing I'm in kind of disagreement with is the whole burning of the flag. If you're an American, Canadian, you don't want to do that. We're so, at liberty here to do things like that. Burning flags, I mean, if you were to do that, let's say in Iran, it's a freaking offense. Like, you will be killed just for even thinking about burning your own country's flag. So the fact that we're so entitled that the little things like that, I find a little bit unfair for the rest of the world, right? Like, we don't have the same sort of liberties and freedom that other countries do. So don't take advantage of it by burning flags like that. Show that you can be, a compassionate, good person. Fucking just live with it. All you can do is live the next 4 years with this guy as president and see where it takes you. But to start burning flags in protest, that, I don't know, I'm in disagreement with it. But I get it. I understand why they're doing it. Fucking immigrants are scared right now. They don't know what's happening. They don't know what their future holds for them. Again, it's just, it's a disaster right now for them. All we can do as Canadians is sit back, relax, and watch the mayhem unfold. But us as Canadians don't want to do that. We want to come in and help as much as we can, right?
So it's what we do.
It's what we do. So, it's just craziness,
Yeah, see, I agree entirely with what you said, right? It's their democratic right to go out there and protest the result of the election.
Mm-hmm.
But some people think that they're protesting this because they're crybabies and sore losers.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. Do you honestly think that's why people are taking to the streets, is because Hillary Clinton was not elected president?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
They're out there because they are legitimately worried about their future.
Yeah.
Because of all of the things that Donald Trump has said that he will do once he becomes president, including the Muslim register and the roving bands of deportation squads that are going to be rounding up illegal immigrants and sending them back to their home country.
Yeah.
If someone's child, the child of an immigrant, heard that on TV or on the radio or whatever,
mm-hmm.
You're goddamn right they're going to be afraid.
I mean, yeah, just to look at some of the issues that are probably going to happen. Women will lose their right to privacy and access to healthcare. Gay couples don't know if their marriages will actually be valid, or if they haven't yet taken their vows, if they'll be honored. You have, the immigrants who are going to be stopped and frisked under the false pretense of law and order. You have, the stock market itself lost 5%, and trading has been halted during the week, but I don't know if it's continued on. But economists fear that over $1 trillion has evaporated from the country already. So, there's 20 million Americans that are going to lose their health care.
If he repeals Obamacare.
Yep.
Yeah.
And thousands of students will continue to accumulate massive student debt. You got Mexico's economy maybe on the brink of implosion. You know, you got yeah. I mean, our planet is moving towards destruction exponentially, and with our coastal cities on a fast track towards going proof, it's just
Yeah,
it's craziness.
it is. So you're goddamn right. I support the protests that are currently happening, and it's like I said, it is not because they're whining and bitching about losing the election.
Yeah.
It's out of fear, and it's out of a demand for a respect for these rights to continue under this new president. And if he does not hear that, then there's something fundamentally wrong.
Well, I mean, if you look at America itself, I mean, they can no longer be trusted as the leader of the free world, and it's a position they've held for like over 2 centuries now. So it's just craziness that they allowed this to happen.
It's absolute madness.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I don't think they can be considered the leaders of the free world anymore. Mm. I think if anyone can, it'll be Angela Merkel and Germany. Just because she's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about. Like, I've heard little things here and there, but not much. So I don't know, really much about her. But
yeah, no, she's a powerful leader. Right now, she's the backbone of the EU's economy. Well, Germany is rather, but like she's facing a lot of criticism at the moment because of the whole refugee thing, and again, that whole sense of like the collapse of globalism and the fear surrounding everything that's happening. The rise of the far right. So she's losing a little bit of steam, but I hope she continues during the next German election. I don't know when it is, but I hope she wins it again because she kicks ass.
Yeah.
Her welcome message to Donald Trump, or her congratulatory message to Trump, was a little bit more thorny than the rest of, in comparison to the British Prime Minister's welcome message. Like, she reminded Trump that German values are rooted on intolerance and acceptance and all of that other nice stuff that we enjoy. And she said, Germany will work with the U.S. under those conditions.
Really?
Good for you, Angela Merkel.
Germany, of all countries, huh?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah, we need more world leaders to have a backbone and stand up for what they think is right. Because, like Hillary Clinton said in her concession speech the next day, always continue to fight for what's right. And that's, I think, what everyone in the U.S. needs to keep doing. In the face of fear, in the face of hatred, and in the face of bigotry and unbridled misogyny, people need to continue fighting for what's right.
For sure.
And people are already facing violence in the aftermath of this election.
Yeah.
The Huffington Post ran an article of people sharing some frightening images in the aftermath of Trump's victory, and I'm just going to read a couple of these, just some of the small ones.
Okay.
Well, for one thing, plastered on a wall in spray paint is "Black lives don't matter, and neither do your votes."
Wow.
And that's on the wall in Durham. Let's see here. There's a story from some other person saying, "I'm waiting with my son in his kindergarten line, and a little girl and boy in his class are saying they voted for Trump and are teasing a Hispanic kid in line by saying he's Mexican and going to a different school, and they'll be going back to Mexico." That's in kindergarten. It's absolutely astonishing. And this is from a Muslim woman saying, "A Trump supporter tried pulling off my hijab. This is not a joke anymore. All non-whites have become targets. Stay safe." Another Muslim woman saying, "My mom literally just texted me, 'Don't wear the hijab, please.' And she's the most religious person in our family."
It's really sad. I mean, I've seen reports of neighbors. You got one neighbor, white, typical American, and then you got their neighbor who's been an immigrant in the country for 30-some years. And as soon as Trump became elected, all of a sudden you got the white neighbor coming out and telling the immigrant neighbor, "Go home, leave. We don't want you here.
This isn't your country anymore."
This isn't your country anymore. So how sad is that? I mean, this person's been living there for the last 30 some years, and all of a sudden they can't call it home anymore. It's sad. It's terrifying for these people. My heart goes out to them right now because they're living in such fear from the surroundings that they're part of right now, and it's absolute craziness. I mean,
It's disgusting.
it really is.
It's
It really
disgusting,
is.
and it needs to stop.
Yeah.
And this is just the problem isn't only racism; it's also misogyny. Like wild racism is fucking intolerable.
Yeah.
This is just another one from that same article. I'm downtown, and a group of white dudes are looking at a woman wearing a dress, standing alone, minding her business. We all get on the subway. When she walks past the group, one of the men yells, "Grab her by the pussy." One of the dudes literally then tried to touch the woman inappropriately. The woman yelled, and the guys laughed. A group of people and I literally threw 3 dudes off the subway. America is really thinking this shit is a joke. See, what people did when they elected Donald Trump as their next president is they validated every hate-filled, misogynistic, xenophobic, racist comment he has ever made, and they have normalized it.
Yep.
This is now an acceptable form of behavior.
They're vulgar lies, it's bullying, and anyone who dared question the campaign strategy, you're calling them racist, you're calling them sexist, you're calling them, just agents of Vladimir Putin's Russia. It's like, it's craziness.
But in the face of that, have you heard about the safety pin campaign?
No.
Well, this came out of, I think it was Australia originally, but the idea is some people have started wearing safety pins just on their shirt or on their jacket or whatever to indicate that they are an ally. And if anyone feels threatened or intimidated by one of these fucking assholes, if someone's wearing a safety pin, you can go to them and you can feel safe.
Really? Wow, I don't even know what to say to that.
I think that's brilliant. That is such an act of humanity in the face of all this terrible darkness.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's also very sad that
we actually have to do it in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I know. It's what has this world come to?
Yeah, it's super sad that people have to identify themselves as non-threatening at this point.
Yeah. What can you do?
That's sad.
It is sad. Very sad.
So what do we do now? What happens next for the U.S. and the rest of the world in the face of a Donald Trump presidency?
My prediction is he's going to have to drop out. With all these trials going on, and I mean, he can lawyer up all he wants, but they're out there. He's got the fraud trials, the sex charges, and all that stuff. So it's like, something has to come up where he may have to drop out. And I feel like it is going to happen. And,
Do you think he's going to make it to Inauguration Day?
We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. That's a tough one.
I don't know either. I think you're right. I think he has to resign. But then again, if he does, Mike Pence becomes president.
And that was my whole conspiracy theory before, is that this whole election has been to try and get Mike Pence to become president. The whole idea was to have Trump run through this election because they knew he had the votes to possibly make him president. And now that he is, they're going to use all these scandals to have him drop out. And now you have Mike Pence as president.
Which arguably could be just as dangerous. Like, this is the guy who believes in electroshock therapy to get the gay out of people. Zap them until they're not gay anymore. Like, what kind of madness is that?
Well, I mean, they do say that you're not born gay. There's no genetic code in there that says that, But either way, it's the same thing with racism. You're not born racist. It's taught, and the way that it's taught, it can be untaught. So, it's really about informing people, making them more aware that there's more than the violence and the corruption that's going on. You can be a good person if you choose to be.
Yeah, that's true of racism, but like, being gay isn't a choice.
I know. Yeah. That was a whole other thing. But
Yeah, like it's a reality that the U.S. and the rest of the world now has to live with for the next 4 years if he makes it to term.
Mhm.
And it's something we all have to we have to deal with it. Because this is the new reality. This is going to reshape the entire planet. And if we liberals don't want to lose our island of hope, we need to stick around and fight for it.
for sure.
So for the Americans who are considering fleeing the U.S. to either join us up here in Canada and enjoy our protection, or move to another country in the face of this, don't.
Keep in mind how cold it is here, guys.
But besides the fact that it's really cold up here in the winters, don't move. Stay in America and continue fighting to defend your freedoms. Continue fighting to defend what's right. Because if you leave, they win.
There'll be nobody left. That's it, guys. Like, I completely agree with everything you're saying. Don't give up hope, because there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. You gotta go through that darkness first, but I guarantee you things can only look better from here on out.
Things are going to look very, very dark in the beginning, but if you stand up against that kind of tyranny, if you stand up in the face of hatred and violence and everything else that Donald Trump has represented during this entire campaign, if you stand up for reason and rationality and science and education, you can make the world a better place.
Agreed.
And I think that's be a good place to wrap it up.
I think so.
So just before we go, do have an announcement to make. This is actually Jose's last episode. He has decided to, for personal reasons, to no longer continue with the podcast.
You may hear me on a guest appearance every now and then, but as of last send off, this will be my last episode as a co-host here. So I enjoyed my time, Mark. It's always been a pleasure as always. We've had some fun. We haven't done many episodes together, but we rant on as we always do, and I've had fun.
Well, it's been it won't be the same without you, but the podcast will continue. Luke Levine has accepted to come on as co-host. He'll be joining us on our next episode. Don't know what the topic will be yet, but he will be here. The podcast will continue in its current format. Jose, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you rant beside me for these past five episodes.
Thank you.
It's been great. Thank you we started this thing together, and it wouldn't have been possible without you. So,
I appreciate
heartfelt thank you for everything that you've contributed to the show. Glad to have you on anytime.
I'll definitely be coming back, I'm sure. This isn't the end, but you won't hear me consistently every week like we usually do. But it won't be my last appearance, I'm sure.
I think that's a great way to end this episode. This isn't the end. Donald Trump may be the next president of the U.S., but this is not the end.
Mm-hmm.
The sun will rise tomorrow. Things will get better. And in 4 years from now, somebody will come along to, as they say, make America great again. Hopefully, and this goes out to all the girls and all the women out there. One of you will become the next or the first woman president of the United States.
I'm looking forward to that.
We don't know who she is yet. It wasn't Hillary Clinton. It could be, someone who is just who's in college or is just starting out in politics. But you're out there, and you're gonna do this. You're gonna take America and the rest of the world by storm, and it'll be amazing.
I hope so.
So as always, thanks for listening. This has been Critical Junction Episode 5. I'm Mark.
I'm Jose.
And we'll catch you again next time.